Right, guys. Hope you've been enjoying all the Years Hours episodes that I've been putting out recently. I quite like Days Out to IG Mints. I hope you've been enjoying the little parody songs as well, mate. I've been enjoying doing them. Some of them I can do in a minute and a half, done it. Some of them have took me about half an hour. Like the Shania Twain one, I put a bit of time into. I don't know if that comes across, but rather than just sitting here blowing smoke up my own arsehole, being like, aren't I mental? I thought, I'd to explain why I've been doing the Hayes House before we get straight into the show. Well, before we get into the show. If we was going to get straight into the show, we would have already started it, I suppose. But I've been doing all the Hayes House. Whether you've been listening to this in the future, or whether you're listening to this today, being Monday the 22nd of December, or if you're listening to this, on the drive home from your families at Christmas, you've had an argument, your missus is sat in the car with you, she's not happy that you've put this on, in which case, hello, love. You alright? How many of these has he had you listen to? Send me a little message, let me know how many he's made you listen to. Otherwise, the reason why I've been doing the Hayes Hours is just because it's been busy, putting a lot of time into researching and that. But I thought, as it's Christmas, and I'm off now, I'm done for Christmas, I thought I'd do a little Christmas special. So, I thought what I'd try and do is quell that cryptid thirst and do a show on the quilled monster of the northeast, a monstrous Yorkshire bird. It screams in the night, terrifies local men, and attacks the women and keeps the children under control. Normally at this time of year, we tell our kids that Santa's watching, innit? So you got to be good, don't be naughty. Santa's watching. Father Christmas is over there, on the other side of that window. You can't see him, but I know he's there. You know he's there. He's making a list, But for the folk of Yorkshire, the other 11 months of the year, they keep their children under control by reminding them that there's a dark plumed, terrifying people-sized bit of poultry lurking in the darkness. Now I know what you're thinking. Terrifying didn't really fit in there with all the alliteration that normally goes on in these bits, and maybe you're thinking he's lost his touch. But I'm spelling it with a silent P, and that'll become apparent later as to why. Because this week, we're looking into the Cock Wombler, a giant bird that some people might mistake for the pterodactyls that are regularly seen throughout the Pennines. Now, obviously, I've got no songs in this anymore because it's not longer going out on the radio. So it might be a bit hard to seamlessly move from one point to another point, but I feel like a good way to start might be to give you a bit of a rundown on the Cock Wombler himself, or herself, could be a girl. If you want it as basically as possible, it's an anthropomorphic chicken. It's a cockerel, man. A humanoid hen. Simply put, it's just another type of manimal. Much like Bigfoot, the lizard people, mermaids, or Mothman. It is either or part of a group of poultry people. Annoyingly, there's nothing but mystery surrounding the name, just raw speculation. The word Wombler on its own means fuck all. It's literally just a name. I found it spelt as one word, as Cock Wombler, and also I found it as separate words like the Cock Wombler, like a 3-word thing or a 1-word thing. I mean, some people described it as Cock Wombler, but that just felt grammatically incorrect. It's not very descriptive, but I suppose mermaid isn't either. I don't know what mermaid means. Does mer mean water? Wet maid? But that sounds like someone that you'd let your kids suckle the teat of, if you're posh. So maybe that helps to make it more believable that this one could exist. Because a lot of people believe in mermaids. I'd say normal people, some normal people, women, normalish women, kind of normal women. Women that can hold a conversation believe in mermaids. And also, like Bigfoot, he feels a lot more believable when you use its Christian name of Gigantopithecus. Do you know what I mean? You use a name like that and people are into it if it's just one word. But, whereas the Mothman, people aren't as keen on that. The Loveland Frogmen of Ohio, the Tuscumbian Space Penguins, people hear that and they think, nonsense. Now, some people suggest the Wombler element is a way to describe its movement. Another guy that I was reading about, he imagines it's associated with the noise it makes. But even then, I've never seen a person womble. And I don't think I've ever heard anything make a noise that I would describe as a clear, distinct womble. I don't know what that would be. I don't know what these people think that is. As a movement, womble makes me think of like a bit of a limp with a bit of a limpy wobble, maybe. As for the noise, a womble, it made a bit of a wombling noise. I had no idea, mate. No idea what a wombling noise could be. Like a maybe that's a wombling noise. I don't know what. Yeah, I mean, let me know in the comments what you would describe as a wombling noise. What makes a womble noise? If you'd like to let me know. This goes out to your wife sat beside you in the passenger seat now as you're driving home from her mum's. Tell it again. He'll tell you what to write in the comments. You leave it in the comments on Spotify and let me know. You know what you think is what creature you both think makes a womble noise. Like what creature would be a wombler? Is it a wombler? Oh, there was a. I tell you what, there was a terrifying womble outside the house last night. Oh, he was making a right womble, he was. It's nonsense, gibberish, fucking no idea what they're on about. And the sightings of the Cock Wombler are pretty localised. They're mostly in the north of England and predominantly over to the northeast. Stranger still is that this birdman was around for about 19 years and then not really seen since. Never seen before. I don't think he's been seen since. The first sighting was in 1947, and the last recorded sighting, now I say last recorded sighting, it's the last sighting that's accepted by at least some cryptozoologists, was in 1968. And even then, that last sighting, it isn't by someone who seems as confident as some of the other witnesses. They just described seeing the shadow of a huge 6 foot plus bird down between some buildings in Leeds on a main road called Albion Street. So there's a fair bit of detail, but also not a lot of detail. They say that the shadowy figure was stood in between two buildings and bent down cleanly from the hip and reached towards the floor with its head. Right, so you got to imagine it's just leaning towards the floor with its beak, with its mouth. It's a bit uncharacteristic, I'll be honest, for the Cock Wombler because, you know, sightings were so few and far between. It still got reported and recorded, do you know what I mean? Like, they made a note of it, but I personally, after reading and looking into all this, I don't know if I really believe in the one that just bent towards the ground. It seems a bit strange compared to the rest, but, you know, I couldn't find the article either, so I'm not sure why that 1968 one. It's just other people recounting that article, or I suppose I should say other people recounting other people's references to the article from 1968. And no one else reports seeing the Wombler seemingly eat off the floor like an actual chicken. Nothing in other reports even make it seem very chicken-like at all, apart from its appearance. Like, it doesn't cluck, it doesn't like bob back and forth as it walks. Those watching on Patreon can enjoy me bobbing my head back and forth whilst I sit here. Do you know what I mean? It's it's literally just the way it looks. It just kind of, sort of, in a way, looks like a chicken, I guess. A big chicken. Now, I suppose this is probably as good a time as any to try and describe it to you. Now, I've pulled the picture up to help me, and it's for all intents and purposes, it's a massive feathered fella. No clear indication of gender. Some people said online that it's clearly a male because of the comb on its head. But I know my chickens. I don't know if you know this about me, but I do know my chickens. And you can get a type of chicken called a leghorn. They're very good layers, popular pets. People like them. A lot of people breed them. One of the more popular ones, I would say, would be a white leghorn. But they all have a big floppy comb, regardless of the gender, boy or girl, hen or cockerel, doesn't matter, big floppy comb. So they having a big comb on its head, this creature, doesn't necessarily mean it's a boy. It could be a girl. It might be neither. I would imagine it's probably neither. You don't imagine Bigfoot to be a boy or a girl. Obviously, you've seen the jumpers I've had designed about the Loveland Frogman of Ohio and the Mothman. It's funny to imagine that they're men with massive penises that chase people around in the street, but the Cock Wombler doesn't really chase people. Not very much menacing about him, really. It's just an interesting little creature. So, imagine for me, if you will, a 6'7" man, and now you're going to replace his long legs with much, much shorter legs, disproportionate, in fact, to the size of his body. Sticking with the legs, though, we're gonna swap out the skin and hair that you're possibly imagining for what was described by a witness called Jeffrey Parker as legs scaled like a turkey, which again is a strange point of reference to go for turkey. I don't think many people are looking at turkey legs, but maybe back then in the 60s. Well, I think he was in the 50s as a thing, but we don't. I haven't mentioned the rest of his story in this, but I think he was from one of the sightings in the 50s. He said the legs were scaled like that of a turkey. Anyway, there's also two long points coming up from about a quarter of the way up the leg, pointed backwards and angled up with a curve, like a spur, basically, on just a regular chicken, on a regular cockerel. They got spurs. It's what people used to tie like corkscrews to and make them fight each other. That, but naturally. A lot of chickens have it naturally. Some people trim them. I think it's a bit grim to trim them. Just wear shin guards or something if you've got a particularly aggressive chicken. Do you know what I mean? Just while you're hacking off bits of your bird. Why are you attaching screwdrivers to it though and chucking it in a ring and making it fight other birds with other tools attached to it? That's always seemed mental to me. Never really been into the idea of cockfighting at all. I find the idea of that being the best part of someone's week, I find that quite funny. The idea, and dogfighting and stuff like that, the idea that people are like sat at work and they're looking around at each other being like, oh, counting down the hours so that the co-worker will go, have you got big plans tonight? He's like, yeah, going and watching a dogfight. And people will be like, that's disgusting. Do you know what I mean? Like that how can that be the best part of that person's life? But for some people it will be. Anyway, getting very distracted here. Some people say that these spurs, the points on the legs, are a couple inches long. Others say that it looked like it reached about a foot in length. But everyone who did see the cryptid standing up has reported seeing the spurs on the legs, on these otherwise scaly legs. They never mentioned any of that, though, in the aerial sightings. But I guess that kind of makes sense because the spurs would probably be pointing upwards towards the sky as the creature flies. So you wouldn't really see it unless it flew past you at ground level. And why would the Cock Wombler be flying around at ground level? I think a lot more people would notice it if that was the case. But again, that's just speculation. We will get into the aerial sightings. Don't worry. That I'm not just going to skim past that. We'll get into that. But I think the aerial sightings are quite possibly unrelated to the Cock Wombler. I think the most likely sightings of a pterodactyl of some sort. We'll do a full episode as well about pterodactyl sightings in the future. But the reason why I find it hard to believe the Cock Wombler is incapable of flight is probably going to become pretty clear soon, I hope, to those of you that have even the slightest bit of intelligence. I'm looking at you, love, in the passenger seat who's rolling her eyes at every other word I'm saying whilst you're driving around, while your fella's making you listen to this. Anyway, the next feature of a Cock Wombler that you're going to need to add to your mind's eye is its dark plumage, described as some people as like looking at TV static. Now, that's again, I mean, it's possible because I know my chickens, so it's quite helped with the research of this. I'd like to stay away from claiming it's an extra-dimensional entity struggling to properly form itself, as that feels pretty outlandish. Now, look at me, maturing, do you know what I mean? A few years ago, I'd have been all over it, it's an extra-dimensional entity. Maybe it's not. Maybe the Cock Wombler isn't, right? I want to try and stay within the realms of what we know is possible. Just for this, for the Christmas special, that's my gift to you. We'll stay within the realms of possibility. Now, I'd like you to Google a type of chicken called a silver Sussex. You should see a black and grey chicken. That now, if you scaled that up, you can imagine it could resemble TV static in certain lighting. Now, there's no reports of weird sulphuric smells with the sightings, which does separate it from other cryptids and helps to split it away from the idea of extra-dimensional entities. Obviously, if you are driving, please be careful. Don't be Googling that while you're driving. It can wait. Or your missus can do it and then describe the chicken to you, but she's just going to describe the same as what I said. It's a black and grey chicken. I don't know what you don't really need to Google it, to be honest. It's just to help you visualise the colour if you're shit at visualising the idea of black and grey feathering on a bird that you're building in your brain, where a good chunk of that bird is in the shape of a man. Anyway, I do think that by not mentioning the sulphuric smells, though, potentially, maybe, could be a way of trying to censor an eggy smell. Do you know what I mean? Just because eggs, sulphur, often related to each other in the sense of smells. Because you don't want it in being in all the tabloids of, oh, what came first, the bird person or the egg? Oh, I smelt sulphur, rotten eggs, and then I saw a big chicken, man. And what came first, the chicken or the egg? Oh, we know the egg comes first. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's some sort of shite like that they try and use to make the witnesses seem silly in the press. But anyway, back to the Silver Sussex. For those of you that are, like I say, it's too lazy or daft, or maybe you're driving. It's just a relatively normal shaped chicken. It's your average sort of shaped chicken. It's like a type of Sussex. You've got a light Sussex, which is the common chicken. It's that the light Sussex would be predominantly white with a little black neck. This is predominantly black with a silver neck, and some of that silver gets spread through its chest and back, but not intensely. So that's what I'm imagining the Cock Wombler looks like, because there's no decent photographs of it. There's just artist interpretations as well. And well, it's a picture, but it's obviously it's not going to be a real picture. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of the pictures of these creatures, they're not real pictures, but they look real. But the artist's renditions, like the pictures on me jumpers on worldaroundyou.com, they're not real photographs. They look photorealistic, but they're not real photographs. Not of the frogman, not of the mothman, not even of the cryptid with the condom in his hand. They're not photographs. I'll be the first to admit it. Now, it's a normal shaped chicken, predominantly black feather with a bit of grey, maybe even silverish lines. Now, chickens can be various shapes and sizes. For example, a silver seabright, which is probably one of my favourite chickens, to be honest. I quite like a gold seabright as well. Big fan of the lemon seabright. I would really like to have a collection of them, but I'd probably be more than happy with a collection of nicely bred silver seabrights if you get the nice lace pattern on the feathers. Oh, mwah, lovely. Now, they've got similar colours, but they're a lot smaller, quite skinny, but they can look quite tall in a photograph. They look like a lankier chicken, even though they're short. But the feathering pattern is very different. It's more of like what's called a laced pattern. The line around the outside of the feather is a different colour rather than just a mixture of feather. You could also quite possibly, if you'd like, have a look at a Scots grey chicken. That might be more of what the Cock Wombler looks like, quite possibly, colour-wise. Anyway, it's not for me to say, do you know what I mean? I'm just trying to give you ideas so you can build the thing in your head. Now, the Silver Seabright is a bantam breed, which usually means it's small, quite often ornamental chicken. You're not that fussed by eating its eggs. But the feather pattern, I apologise, not the fatter pattern. I just said that wrong. I was trying to think faster than what I could speak. The feather pattern, that wouldn't really resemble static. That's why I'm now thinking Scots Greys as well would be a good shout. The biggest chickens, in my opinion, are probably a Brahma, but I could be wrong. From what I've seen at poultry markets as a kid, they'd be a Brahma. They usually get to about getting on for a metre tall, I'd say. Getting there, not quite there, but getting there. And I find it very hard to believe that someone could see a Brahma chicken out in the wild and think, fuck me, that's a 6'7" chicken, man. Do you know what I mean? Very, very unlikely. They could be mental. It's possible they could be mental, but no one's looking at a meterage of chicken and going, that's 6'7", and not only is it a 6'7" chicken, it's also a 6'7" half chicken, half man hybrid. Very unlikely. Whereas, to compare it to something else, you could see a bear walk on its hind legs and think to yourself, shit, that's Bigfoot. Because what else? You wouldn't expect a bear to walk on its hind legs. We know that they do it, but if you saw it in the woods, in the right setting, yeah, okay, that could be Bigfoot. Whereas in the woods, you see a chicken in the woods. Does a chicken in the woods? Is it possible? Quite possible that you see a chicken in the woods, someone could release him. Is it possible that you see a chicken in the woods and think to yourself, chicken man? No, I don't think it is. Now, the next defining feature of this anthropomorph chick, should we call it, would have to be the arms. Feathered, but not at the elbow or at the hands, which is weird, isn't it? Some artist interpretations show long feathers on the arms, others just show short feathers. It's pretty inconclusive, but they show a bare elbow, or at least a different colour on the elbow. But the weirdest part is the ends of the arms. Just a human hand, fingers, joints, a palm, the back of an hand. I'll be dead honest, it's never shown me I've never seen the Cock Wombler's palms. I don't know if they're feathered palms, but I'm going to imagine not, because the elbow isn't and the rest of the hand isn't, so why would the palm be? It'd be very unhelpful for the bird, I would have thought that, if there was feathers on the palm. I don't know who that would be good for, why evolution would do that to a chicken, man. I've got no idea. You don't see any other creatures with feathered palms. Even dogs. Look at a dog's foot. It purposely produces flesh. So why a chicken creature would produce feathers in its palm so it just can't grip anything? Just seems unlikely. They seem to have a thumb as well, which is pretty weird. Not many creatures get depicted with a thumb. This does. So you can see it's got 4 fingers and then a finger to the side, which resembles a thumb. Again, I've not read that it said someone say, "Oh, it's got a thumb," but it looks like it's got a thumb in the pictures. But as far as the fingers are concerned, some interviewers, when you read into that, asked the witnesses if they had fingers, which, as I'm sure most interviewers out there listening to this would say, that's quite a leading question. So that feels like it's hard to believe that they did have fingers, because if someone says to you, you know, "Oh, have you got would you say you had an itchy arsehole?" And you go, "Oh, yeah, actually I would, yeah, I do get an itchy arsehole." They've led you to agree to that. Whereas if they say, "Do you ever, tell me about your bumhole?" Your first word isn't going to be, "It's regularly itchy." Do you know what I mean? It's going to be, "Oh, I don't like touching it," or, "Oh, it smells a bit," or, "Oh, it's a bit of air," "Oh, it's bald," "Oh, it's, Would you go itchy straight away? I don't know. Terrible example. Don't know why I went there. What the fuck was I talking about? Fingers. Fingers on a chicken monster. Oh, the interviewers. That was it. So the interviewers seem to lead them to it. It just, and it's also, though, that is the reason why I find it quite hard to believe that this thing was flying around. Because bats have got little fingers, but they're near the elbow, aren't they? They're not at the extremity at the end of the extremity. Would you call the end of an arm the upper appendage? It's not even an arm; it's a wing, so it's an upper appendage. Would you call the extremity of the upper appendage an hand? I don't know, but the bats don't have fingers there. They maybe have a little hook or something, maybe. They don't have a full-on hand, do they, at the end of the fucking wings? It'd be ridiculous. How's that aerodynamic? How's that helping? It's just something in the way. There was a fun quote, though. I did find a good quote, which I will. I'll get that up for you now. They all described the eyes as a deep black colour, almost reflective. Some of them said in some circumstances. And an interviewer called, I'm probably going to butcher this, but Frederick Hinchlock asked people if they thought it could be that the creature was wearing goggles or glasses. And one guy was quoted as saying, It had no ears, sir," which I think is a mint response to if someone was wearing glasses. Like if you said to, "Oh, was that guy was that supply teacher wearing glasses?" and you went, "He had no ears." That's not your answer. Do you know what I mean? It answers the question, but not in a way that's helpful to an interviewer. Do you know what I mean? It just seems like the guy was probably panicked by it. So how close to this was he asking him? Like, how close was this interview with this Frederick Hinchlock? Was he following the Cock Wombler around? Was he dressing up as the Cock Wombler and then going and interviewing the people? How did he find the people? Couldn't figure out how he found the people to ask, because not many of them left their names when they spoke about the Cock Wombler. Where was we? It's another thing about the people that witnessed the Cock Wombler, if you like. I just said they didn't leave any names, but none of them became ill. None of them got cancer. None of them just had mad heart attacks out of nowhere. They never mentioned any other phenomena, like lights in the sky or visits from men in black, even though it was the 1960s and that was rife with MIB sightings. I mean, that was in America, but this was in England. The eyes were big and sat above a long beak, which, back to your mental eye now, your mind's eye, to build up the image of the chicken person, the Cock Wombler, as it's known. The long beak, which had a bright red wattle dangling beneath it. Now, for those again that aren't big into poultry, the wattle's the dangly red thing under a chicken's head. The comb being the headpiece, the thing on the top of the head, the red bit, which it did have. It had one of them as well. That was a deep red colour for that. It saw, for those that saw the Cock Wombler in the light, that's what they described as seeing. Now, the beak was often described as long with a pouch in the lower half, which I presume means like a pelican. But it doesn't. The rest of it doesn't sound like a pelican. A pelican doesn't have a wattle and a comb, so it couldn't just be a pelican that's got free from someone's menagerie. Do you know what I mean? Because you got to imagine it's the 1960s. There's an awful lot of drugs going around. There's an awful lot of money. There's an awful lot of menageries. No menagerie is missing a pelican with a comb and a wattle that's 6'7" tall with bones growing out of its leg. This is just not happening. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, now there were some discrepancies on the appearance, so I've summarised it in a way because some people said 6'5", a few said approximately 6'6", which again is quite specific, but I think it's fun to stick with 6'7" because it makes it seem a bit scarier and it's a bit more fun to think this chicken monster's scarier. But I just wanted to be as transparent as I could be with the research because others described the beak as dark yellow, sharp point with a rounded lower half, but I thought the pelican beak description might have made it easier for you to visualise it in your head. Because I know you probably aren't taking apart birds or looking at birds a lot. I know I look at birds a lot, but I know that you probably aren't. So I just wanted to be able to build the creature in your head, if you like. Now, I did briefly mention that there was no light spotted around the sightings, but a lot of the sightings seem to have taken place within, or at least a stone's throw, from a boundary of the Newton-Wold Triangle. The Newton-Wold Triangle. An area that I mentioned, back in a 2021 episode called Urban Legends. And the Newton-Wold Triangle, as I probably said back then, deserves a show in and of itself. But there's loads of mental sightings and happenings in the Newton-Wold Triangle. People vanish, there's UFOs that torment people, vampiric entities, a couple of werewolf sightings, a dragon, sea monsters, even a couple of ghosts. So that definitely needs its own episode. They're all things, though. They are, I don't mind saying, all things that people doubt. But there is one thing that seems to have definitely happened there. That's weird. One that scientists refuse to deny because it helps to build their potential web of lies revolving around the existence of space, around them it convincing us that we live on a ball. Not to say that I'm a flat Earth believer. I'm not. I just don't know what to believe about any of it, really. But they seem to convince that we live on a ball with other balls floating billions of miles away. So to help build that, it's quite and to scare us out of going up there and trying to figure out a way out of it, it's pretty useful, isn't it, if they can have a meteorite smash through the ground there in the Newton-Wold Triangle. Yeah, there's quite possibly the most important meteorite strike. But well, anyway, So it left a crater, which was about a metre, I'd say. I think I read a bit about a metre wide in the floor. And luckily it landed in a writer's field. He was a poet, he was a journalist, he owned a bit of land. His name was Major Edward Topham, Topham. Luckily, he had the right contacts to be able to disseminate the information and the required skills to collect information from the witnesses in the area. And this meteorite, as I said, was probably one of the most important meteorites that ever struck the Earth. Up there, possibly first to or second to the one that came and killed the dinosaurs. I mean, if you believe in that sort of thing, dinosaurs and meteorites and that, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. It hit the ground during a thunderstorm in 1775, I think it was, in an area, I think it was 1775 or 1774. I have made a note, but now I'm looking at that number, I doubt it, because I've actually wrote 1975 in my notes there, and that's thrown me because I know that's not true. But I think it was 1775. And it's the area that it's is frequently associated with fairy activity and fairy sightings, and the Fae. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a bit weird, isn't it? Now, the reason why this little sky boulder holds such significance is because it was the main rock that helped to, quote, prove that rocks can fall out of the sky. A convenient scientific fact when you consider dinosaurs were invented in 1824 and scientists would have needed to accept that idea and link it in with dinosaurs at some point. But here's the shocker. It wasn't until 1980 that someone suggested that a heavenly pebble wrecked the giant lizards. But that tied those two avenues of science together in such a way that if you believe in other worlds, meteorites and vast emptiness looming above our heads, then now you can accept and believe in gigantic monsters, because if you believe in the gigantic monsters, you have to believe in space. And if you believe in space, you've got to believe that it's capable of coming down here and destroying the Earth as we know it and changing life to something that could never have existed beforehand. So it ties both them worlds together, like a crossover event in a series you like, or in a bunch of films that you've been into. Because, you would have been viewed as a kid, as a baby, as a child, for going, there used to be massive monsters covered in scales that'd run around and go roar, roar at each other. But now, because you believe in the space rocks, you're no longer a baby. Now you're a paleontologist, I suppose. Now, a fact, I mentioned something there about the scales, I suppose. That's not really, that's something that's changed just in my lifetime, just to show you how they just change science when they want, because apparently the giant monsters were actually all covered in feathers, making our first connection of the week to winged or feathered serpents, like serpents being a reptile. But I'm getting off track. Of course, like Quetzalcoatl was the feathered serpent, and the Quetzalcoatlus was a massive flying sort of bipedal monster that scientists actually believe in, which will no doubt be altered to some feathered monstrosity rather than the scaled one that it currently sits at in the scientists' eyes. But more on that later. Let's stick with God's skimming stone for now. It rippled the floor and the scientific community, all thanks to this Major Edward Topham. Because of his reporting and his inquiries, science was able to prove in 1799 that rocks do occasionally fall out of the sky. What gets weird as well about this is that an obelisk was erected where it hit the rock, where the rock hit the ground. Which I think is pretty weird. I find all the obelisks weird that they put around the world. I know some people link it to ancient Egyptian culture and a worship of Osiris in the modern day, which is supposed to be a big secret that we're not supposed to know. But it's not something that I've ever properly looked into, so I don't want to go into it here. I just wonder if it somehow helps channel some cosmic force that they hide from us. The rock itself as well was pretty big, 71 centimetres by 90 centimetres and weighed about 25 kilos, which in chicken keeper parlance is about 1.25 bags of bird seed, just to bring it back to birds. And the meteorite's heritage, it does get muddied a little bit by writers over the years who ironically use it to tie their fiction together by attaching it to a variety of fictitious characters like Sherlock Holmes and Tarzan and all of their fabricated ancestors, which were supposedly irradiated on a bus as the meteorite travelled over them, most notably in books by a guy named Philip Jose Farmer, which I would like to read, I think, because it sounds mental. Anyway, we're getting very off track. We spoke of what the Cock Wombler looks like, but there was reports gathered from a woman called Diane Gruber. I think it's Gruber, like a double O sound, because there's one of them double dots over the letter U in there, which makes me think maybe she was German. Whether that makes her more believable to you or less believable to you, I'm not sure. But Diane and her family reported an interaction with the Cock Wombler, and just like most other people's, it's obscured by bushes, trees, as it wanders the British countryside. But it allowed them to see the scaled legs, the big black and silvery chicken head. But what singles out Diane and her children as important witnesses to the Cock Wombler is the noise they heard from it. They described it as a muffled craw, which I think means the noise of a male chicken makes, but quietened. So instead of like cock-a-doodle-doo, it'd be more like like that. But I don't know, because that just makes it sound like there's a guy pissed up in a mascot suit getting around the woods trying to shout, but he's forgotten he's got a mask on. So I don't know. I'm not sure what craw means, a muffled craw. Because it's definitely, I double checked it. It's not a crow. A chicken crows, a cockerel crows, and a bird goes caw 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 caw. That would be a caw, wouldn't it? So a crow, not overly sure, but that's what the group has suggested. And the whole family got interviewed by a specialist in cryptozoology at the time, and they all recreated supposedly a very similar noise, which had inflection in the middle. So more like, I guess, a caw, caw, caw. Maybe. Is that an inflection in the middle? I've got no idea, mate. I'm not like a linguist or whatever you would need to be. So just take from that what you want. The Cock Wombler, it doesn't seem to be a harbinger of doom like the Mothman was, or chemically induced or chemically created like the Loveland Frogman of Ohio might have been with the boot factory that was nearby. It's appeared in multiple locations, unlike the Tuscumbian space penguins, and it isn't limited to the woodland and forests like Bigfoot, because another lady named Sarah Bond witnessed it in the start of the show. I mentioned about the street it was seen in Leeds where it was bending over, Albion Street. Just a giant chicken creature seemingly eating off the floor down a darkened ginnel. It's hard to believe that someone could mistake anything they see for a giant chicken man eating straight off the floor without using his hands. How do you... That's very specific. I would say it's very difficult to think of anything at all that could look like that. I really struggle, because a regular man isn't doing that. They don't have the build for it. They've got normal legs. They haven't got tiny little legs. They're not bending over just from the hip, and their head touches the floor. Their beak touches the floor. It's insane. Nothing else could look like that. So what else could it be? Do you know what I mean? There's very little it could be. I mean, if you want to go really out there, I did do a little bit of more like digging around. Leeds University associates itself with a griffin, but even I find it hard to believe that a university would try to manipulate locals into seeing a griffin around the city centre, because what the fuck would the point of that be? You'd have to know about the university to understand that the griffin was to do with the university, because you'd be seeing the shadow of a griffin eating something off the floor. Is it a real griffin? As a marketing strategy, it makes no sense. Though Sarah did claim it was a shadowy figure, so I guess it could have been a griffin, maybe. I mean, if you're going to accept the existence of a giant chicken man, Mothman and Bigfoot, then it seems mental, utterly bonkers, to deny the existence of a creature that's recorded through most of written history and I'm pretty sure has biblical ties. The griffin, obviously, not the Cock Wombler. To the best of my knowledge, there's absolutely no mention of the Cock Wombler in the Bible, but it has been quite a long time since I've read any of it now, so maybe there was, but I don't think there was. But I'm pretty sure the griffin gets a mention in the Bible. Now, the highest concentration of Cock Wombler sightings took place between the years of 1964 and 1967. And it's a very tenuous connection, but 1964 was a Chinese year of the dragon, which is essentially a winged dinosaur, which is basically an ancient chicken. Like I say, it's tenuous, but there was a successful UK rocket launch that year as well, and Mary Poppins came out as a film. So many people nowadays suggest that Mary Poppins is a type of demonic entity that feeds off of the emotions of children. So I thought and was thinking, could it be that the powers that be were aware of some sort of cosmic reason as to why extra-dimensional entities might swarm the country or the world, and maybe they were trying to make people think positive things about the weird things they'd see in the sky, explaining away all of the the weird aerial sightings with rocket launches and women with magical umbrellas. It's certainly possible. The likelihood of it is difficult to know. Do you know what I mean? It's difficult to say. Would they do that? Wouldn't they do that? Would the government lie to us about the existence of the Cock Wombler and make us think, you've just been watching too much Mary Poppins. There's no Cock Wombler in the sky. The Cock Wombler, can't get to you. You've just been watching too much Mary Poppins. There's a woman. What? There's a woman with an umbrella flying around in the sky. No, it's one of our rockets. It's not the Cock Wombler at all. Do you know what I mean? It's, aerial sightings of the Cock Wombler, though, speaking of being in the air, are unclear and don't all match up in the recounting that I found. But what I did find were sightings of a similar creature in Yorkshire as far back as 1938 and as recently as 1982. The earliest sighting was in a place called Skeffing, which sounds made up, and it was described as a huge green creature that flew through the sky. Not much else on it, really, as far as reports go about this flying green creature. That's it. It was in 1938. It was in Skeffing. It was massive and it were green and it flew. That's it. But it is a big winged creature, just like in 1982, in a place called Shipley Green, where there was a gentleman, we've got a name, William Green, who in September 1982, quite possibly September 12th, there's no clear date, but it is reported that 3 days later a woman saw a huge monster bird in the sky, and I found stuff online that said that happened on the 15th of September. So from what I can assume, William Green gave his account about either on or it was about September 12th. I'm going to, for the sake of this, it happened on September 12th because the 3 days later fits in with the 15th of September. So she's unnamed, the woman who saw the huge monster bird. She claims the massive bird was surrounded by rooks in the sky, which is strange to me, to imagine the Cock Wombler would just be mates with shit crows getting about. But all of these sightings are tied not to the Cock Wombler, but to something known as a phenomena, if you like, a phenomena known as the Pennine pterodactyls. Apparently, the flock was seen flying towards Leeds Airport, that being the flock of rooks and the Cock Wombler, or the pterodactyl, not a flock of pterodactyls. They were going towards Leeds Airport, and there was reports of a man, which seemed to be around the same time, again, no clear date for him, in an area called Pudsey. Now, the 12th and the 15th of September sightings seem to have been about 7 kilometres apart, and the sighting in Pudsey was also about 7 kilometres away from both Leeds Airport and Shipley Green, so gives us a nice little triangle of where these pterodactyls, or where the Cock Wombler likes to fly around, at least in the 1980s, give or take, Now, I just measured it with the tip of my pen using maps online, but it seems about 7 kilometres. So 7 kilometres by 7 kilometres by 7 kilometres are, fucking, what's that, 7 be 7.5, whatever, that's that area there. Yeah, basically, prime pterodactyl territory. Now, the sighting in Pudsey, to me, feels the most credible. The bird was said to have had a face like a crocodile, which could mean a big pelican-like beak if you was to see it quickly. Now, go back to the Cock Wombler in your mind from earlier on in the show. Now, build him again for me. He's got the short, scaly legs with spurs. He's got the black and silver feathering. He's got his bare elbows and his bare hands, his human hands. He's got his big, long, yellow beak, pelican-like gullet attached to the base of his beak, the lower half of his beak. Now, imagine that swooping down at you and screeching at you. And then that could look like a crocodile. Do you know what I mean? Now, what the monster looked like isn't the main interest of the man, though. The monster swooped at him and his dog, and it shrieked at them. Could that shriek have been an unmuffled craw, like a giant flying chicken man would do? That's exactly what a giant flying chicken man would do, innit? It would swoop down, try and nick a dog, so it can pop it in its gullet, in its little fucking pelican pouch, and it would probably go, caw, as it comes towards them, because it's panicking. Now, that could just be a coincidence, as I say. It's just, I'm just putting it together for you get to decide what you want to decide. Another person reports to have seen this creature flying while standing in a place called Eldwick, which is very, very close to Shipley Green, even closer than Pudsey was. It's only, a couple kilometres away when I looked on the map, not far at all. So it's fair to assume that they all saw the same monster. A pterodactyl, Quetzalcoatlus, the Cock Wombler. Could be any of them. They all said it seemed like it was struggling to fly. Almost like it shouldn't be airborne. Now, the Cock Wombler doesn't sound like it should be airborne, does it? Doesn't sound very aerodynamic, does it? Cover a human in feathers, what makes that mean it can fly? Human hands at the end of its wings. Scientists say they don't know how a bee can fly, so it seems like it's okay to believe the Cock Wombler can fly. Do you know what I mean? I always found it weird myself that they'll admit defeat at a bumblebee, but when it comes to Bigfoot grazing a Cock Wombler, all of that pseudoscience. One last point as well, on the possible link to pterodactyls that I'd like to get to. Pterodactyls have loads of fossil remains apparently throughout Yorkshire, meaning that at one point there was quite possibly a breeding population of Cock Womblers in the area. I mean, that's obviously if you don't believe in dinosaurs and you believe more in the Cock Wombler. Some paranormal investigators claim the sightings of the aerial creatures, and therefore the sightings of the Cock Wombler itself, could be a sort of recorded haunting, something that we did cover a couple of years ago in the Ghost episode. Something, in reality is replaying that dinosaur soaring in the sky and the Cock Wombler wandering the forests. It doesn't explain the noise that the Grubers heard, though. It doesn't help to explain that at all. And that's all there really is out there about the Cock Wombler. A giant chicken man or chickman that appears and disappears throughout the Yorkshire area, spooking people for absolutely zero payoff. There's never been an egg found, no young found, leaves no visible footprint, fur, feather, no droppings. Nobody knows if it's cloacid or if it's got a bumhole like a human. The thing's a total mystery. So this Christmas, when you sat around the table staring at that dry turkey or the chicken with a can of Guinness up its arse, just remember that somewhere out there is a massive piece of poultry patrolling the northeast countryside. I'll see you in a bit, and Merry Christmas.